Modern Nomads is a weekly program about Kazakh compatriots who try to save Kazakh traditions for the current and next generations. And for those who are interested in the culture and history of ancient Kazakh nomads. Watch us every week on Kazakh TV. From 1912, many Kazakh people started to write letters asking for Mongolian citizenship. There are 12 letters of that character. Now please read it. To Zardykhan. Were the letters written in Mongolian? No, they were in Arabic. Later, they were translated into Mongolian and were kept in archives. And then were presented to Zardykhan. After that, in 1912, Zardykhan for the first time gave lands to the Kazakhs and allowed them to get the citizenship of Mongolia. This letter is invaluable. They recorded the fates of the Kazakhs who went to Mongolia. Zardykhan was born and grew up outside Kazakhstan too. Is this the relic of the old writing system? Yes, it is. Besides, I have brought some archive documents relating to the Kazakhs in the Mongolian state. Also, we have the state directives regarding the Kazakhs living in the Bayanoglu region from 1922 to 1978. Zardykhan Kinayatuly. This name is familiar not only to the Kazakhs in Mongolia, but also to Kazakh people in Kazakhstan. He is a professional historian and a reputable politician. He is the only Kazakh who became a deputy and the Speaker of Parliament in another country. He strove for interests of Kazakhs from the Parliament tribune. It was in 1991 in the Parliament. I was the Speaker's deputy. Changing the Mongolian script was a big issue in the Parliament those days. Had they done so, the Kazakhs in Mongolia would have forgotten their own written language. I disagreed and was speaking out against it for a couple of days, and eventually we put a stop to the changing the official written language in Mongolia. It goes without saying that he is considered as an established specialist in history among the repatriate Kazakhs abroad, and also he shed more light about knowledge on some aspects of Kazakhstan history. He was famous as a politician who put efforts into the development of democracy in Mongolia. He also actively participated in debates at the confession of the Mongol Kazakh during those days. Zardykhan Kinayatuly has a lot of historical records related to the Kazakhs. The Uyghur alphabet is one of them, but he says it was an early form of the Kazakh alphabet. There were 13 large cultures with developed writing in the world during those days, especially in the Middle Ages. Among them, there is Naiman writing, which was known as Uyghur writing until now. Mongolia has still been using this particular writing style up to this day. It originates from the Naimans. Left-right letter prints, which Aksakals used to wrap in cotton wool fabrics, are the property of the whole nation. A style of writing that was barely introduced academically is still an invaluable relic of Kazakh people. The assumption that Uyghur writing originates from Naiman writing was discovered by well-known scientists such as Vladimirsov, Pope, Mayama and Shastina. The historian is not with the fact that as well as letters, written records about the Kazakhs are not accurate. Who knows, if we hadn't got sovereignty, maybe Kazakh history would have gone, he says. His worries are not baseless. He searched and sifted every piece of information from archives. Summing up the proofs and records rather than bare historical facts is his professional skill. We didn't write Kazakh history by ourselves. It was written by the Chinese and Russians. We base our assumptions on what the Russians wrote. They didn't write so much about the nation called Kazakh. Their depicting of the formation of the Kazakh state only starts based on the creation of Kazakh Khanate, which happened in the year of 1456. The Russians didn't record the history of Akarda, Uysun and Kanlı much, which was far before the Kazakh Khanate. On the other hand, the Chinese were the ones who wrote about the history of Uysun and Kanlı. His student continued developing the idea of the historian. He studied in China and continued his education in Germany. Being calm, patient and focused helps him in his job of being a historian. They are Chinese records. These are the records of a historian from Manchu and Shurshut Khanates. They were written back in 1850. They show the territory of the Kazakh Khanate. The territory of those days was significantly bigger and wider than our territory now. This work is the result of many years' research about Genghis Khan and the foundation of the Kazakh state. It consists of 2 volumes. The first volume is about Genghis Khan's biography, and the second volume is called The Kazakhs During the Mongol Reign. Zardykhan has made a great contribution to the Kazakh culture. He brought ancient records of Alash history directly from Mongolian archives. He also brought secret genealogy books number at about 40, which tells tales about the greatest warrior who ruled the largest empire in the world, Genghis Khan. After repatriation, he wrote 11 monographs. All of these are an invaluable wealth for our history. I published 4 books about Kazakh history during the Mongolian period. The first one is called Genghis Khan and the Kazakh state and consists of 2 books. The first is only about Genghis Khan's biography. The second one is devoted to Kazakh history. The third is called Kazakh State and Joshi Khan. The fourth is called The Last Turkic Tribes Inhabited Mongolian Highlands.
Mongol sürtün meken etken soңгу түрк тайпалар деген монография чыкты. 10 келесі жыл кайта бастырак деп қазір жетті тагда жөндөп.
Later, under my supervision, we published a book in the Kazakh and Russian languages called The History of the Kazakh State. We can call it the first book about the Kazakh state. The most notable work of this scientist is Genghis Khan and the Kazakh state. Mongolian leader Genghis Khan's true personality is still an unresolved mystery. None of those who wrote that Genghis Khan is Kazakh or Turk are professional historians, he says. Rather than considering discord from the origin from Genghis Khan as a dissolution, he compares it with ignorance. The Mongols weren't religious, but used to worship Genghis Khan, says the historian, who studied the Khan's life for a long time. Genghis Khan was born on the territory of Mongolia. He fought for the Mongols, he built the Mongol Empire, he brought glory to the Mongols. He was born and died as a Mongol. Before his death, he left his edification to his sons Agedei and Tolui that said, "I was born Mongol, fought for the Mongols, and built the Mongol Empire. It takes 2 years to go from one side to another side of my country. Do not let my country die. If I die, bury me in Mongolia." Zardykhan Kinayatuly has been in science since he was a student and is still actively working in this field. He works in the Academy of Science. He has 3 to 4 students under his supervision. The head of Medieval History Department is Kanar Uskenbay, Kinayatuly's student. There are no mistakes where everything is consulted. This is a motto for those young people who work at this department. Chinggis Khan, Joshi Khan, the last Turkic tribes inhabited the Mongol highlands. They are all monographs. How did today's Kazakhs immigrate to Mongolia? When did they start to inhabit that territory? He was able to show the whole history of Kazakhs in Mongolia in his 3-volume monographs. His first monographs are The Kazakhs in Mongolia, The Kazakhs in Kobda, and Chronicle of Weeping Years. Independence is not just a word, but is a wholly sacred concept. Very often, repatriates start their long journey to their motherland only when they have grown up abroad. The importance of independence and freedom is appreciated only by young people who had to come to heal. Many generations were waiting for it. Independence was achieved only at the end of the last century. It will always be a prominent event in history. Then Kazakhstan declared its independence. I was sitting in the hall and crying after reading the letter. So I didn't know who I needed to write to. I wrote a letter of congratulation to the Parliament of Kazakhstan. I remember coming home with my children that day, crying with happiness. The day of declaration of independence. It is an independent merit that we've come back to Kazakhstan. A lot of Kazakh repatriates who returned to their motherland do not regret their decision. Since I've come to Kazakhstan, I haven't had any problems or worries. The president provided us with housing. We are proud of our president. There is an autograph of Zardykhan in my application in the book I gave you. Before becoming a public person, Dosenbek lived in Mongolia. That's why his outlooks on history of the Kazakh nation were established far away from Kazakhstan. He considers himself as patriot of Kazakhstan. He shows absolute commitment in his studies. For example, he thoroughly analyzed and did accurate interpretations regarding Kenesari. I'm not the one who pursues medals and titles and orders, but I have quite a lot of them and have never chested them. This is the most significant order in Mongolia, called the Order of Labor. It was awarded for contributions to the democracy of Mongolia. It was given to me for the upholding the new state bill. It rejoices the heart that his work, as well as for science, it rejoices the heart that his work, as well as for science, was useful for the Kazakh culture. He was an advisor for the film Manbala.
Ақтық майданға түсеміз. Көр салмай қалсақ бақұл болайық. Аттанды қалаш! Алаш!
Жау жүрек мың бала деген кино түсірердің алдында басынан бастап кірістім мен. Басынан бастап сценарийін талқылаған.
I started to work with Zardykhan Kinayatuly before he made the Mongala film, from the moment he started writing the screenplay. From the discussion of the script to the invitation he gave Mongol actors, I translated them into Mongolian. Then, holding all the scripts, letters, ethnographic pictures, I presented them all. We worked together for the whole summer, 3 to 4 months. Because I put a lot of efforts in this film, I consider this has been a big event in my life since I came to Kazakhstan. Having moved to Almaty, every year he celebrates Nowruz. Being a historian, he counts the beginning of the new year from Nowruz, a holiday that has always been celebrated by Central Asian peoples.
Navruz dinge ешқандай қатысы. Бұл күн мен түннің теңелгені, сосын
Nowruz is a non-religious holiday. It's the spring equinox of the day and night. The weather gets warmer and it's the beginning of a new cycle of life. That's why people celebrate it as the New Year. The Mongols have the same holiday. They call it Sagansa. They celebrated it a month ago. Nowruz has been our heritage since the 2nd or 3rd century BC. It is called a day of fertility and has been celebrated throughout all Central Asian states for ages. In the Kazakh culture, going green means development and successful settling down, often in a new place. Zardykhan Kinayatuly has been happily married to her spouse. Their children and grandchildren are residents of Kazakhstan and they are all successful. I've got 5 children. My 3 daughters live here in Almaty. All of them work in different areas. I've got 2 sons. One lives in Hungary with his family. He works there as a computer programmer. My daughter-in-law is the head of a small hospital. My youngest son teaches history and philosophy at Kobda University. I've got several grandchildren. He lives very simply. He doesn't make a display that he held a serious position before. The son of his nation, wherever he goes, he cares about people more than about himself. This feature of character is held in him very well. He cares about 5 million Kazakhs who live abroad. I keep in touch with the Kazakhs who live abroad. To be honest, we were born and grew up in the Kazakh community abroad. The problem that worries me is that emigration has stopped. I believe more repatriate Kazakhs should move to Kazakhstan. The number of Kazakhs should grow. The only thing I ask from God, the government and people is a renewal of migration.